What's up, everybody? It's Terry, and I'm back. Alternative Influence Coaching is where you found yourself, whether you like it or not. So, it's been a heck of a 2021, just in the sense of,
Fun times.
yeah, I mean, there's been a little bit going on. Not to mention, I have not gotten back to shooting this series on 10 things that require zero talent at all. So, my bad. I hope you hanging on every word and going back to review other people's stuff. That they were saying. Today I brought on a good buddy of mine, John Shearer.
Hi.
And let me tell you a little bit about John. John and I actually got to know each other back, I say it in the Edge Hill days. I used to have a gym in Edge Hill Village. It was Life Fitness Academy back then. Mm-hmm. There was a bunch of us, and I love the... John and I were doing self-defense. We were doing Krav Maga. Hence the throwback right here.
The first thing I walked to in the room
was weapons.
Yeah, it's a problem.
Yeah, right. So we were going hard, and we had all kinds of fun little ideas of what we were going to do with it. And what I just thought about this just now is that I remember you. I was like, I'm going to bring him in. I'm going to quote unquote hire him, and we're going to do these classes together. But I didn't tell any of my staff. So John shows up for. John, you showed up for a photo shoot, our first gym photo shoot, and he slides right in and takes a picture, and people are like, who's this guy?
I got a lot of weird looks. Ashley was very sweet and gracious. I remember that much, and everybody else would look over and they'd be like,
who's this guy? No, it was good times. I have that picture somewhere. I got to find it.
I was back in the day with Mahoney too, right?
Might have been while he just got there or just before he got there.
Yeah, okay.
But yeah, so John and I have gone on to work with each other on a couple of other things. So yeah, John is. We went on to work together a little bit while he was working at Lyft. So without further ado, I should probably stop talking. John's actually here to talk about being prepared. So maybe give everybody a little bit of a history lesson, I guess. Maybe you remember something fun about those days, then how you came on to Lyft.
I remember you were not just one boss, but at a certain point, I think you were indirectly one boss through CHOP, and then we had the landscaping service, you were directly my boss, and then there was Krav. Yeah, there was a fair amount of like different ways that we interacted. I was hungry, man. I needed food.
If you want to learn about CHOP, I wrote about that in the book, so I'll just throw that out there.
Those were fun times. Those were honest times too. I was asleep by 7.
Yeah, right?
Where were we? So
tell us a little bit about what you did at Lyft.
All right. So I came on 2017 with Lyft on kind of a sort of a jack of all trades, if you will. By day, I would help out drivers doing face-to-face support at our rental location and support location, kind of bounced around. And then by night, there was a growing problem in the city of Nashville down on Broadway and like some of the busier tourist areas with passengers just not knowing where to go and drivers getting in trouble with cops and getting tickets. So our regional director came up with this idea that we would make these little pick-up and drop-off areas, which we just denoted with some feather flags and sandwich boards, and I'd go out at night and drop those. So I did about 180 of those within the first 2 quarters I worked for Lyft. So if you ever saw some pink flags around Bridgestone, I'm your guy. And that kind of grew into, as the team grew and our territories grew, I started working on events. We landed some high-level sponsorships. So I worked music festivals, Indy 500, every Titans game from 2017 through 2019. Mm-hmm. And a lot of it was traffic management and then figuring out customer service and helping direct passengers or even, grabbing their phone and talking to the driver and directing them in. So there's a fair amount of planning on the ground, like pivoting, if you will. We called ourselves the Pivot Posse at one point. It's a stupid alliteration, but it made sense. Man, we just got thrown so many curveballs, and a lot of it was just kind of over-engineering and a city not knowing as much about what was happening. And saying, put them there, it'll be fine. And us having to figure out how to make do and make a pleasant experience for people out there. So, so that eventually led to Man, kind of pulled back and working around 7 territories, like working in-app digitally, kind of designing how these things show up to your passenger and your driver, and then the old panty hit.
Yeah,
So,
it'll slow things down.
yeah.
It made the word pivot cool.
Oh man, did it?
Yeah. So that's why I brought John here, is because I don't know anybody who could speak to this subject about being preparedness more than you. And
Yeah, man.
it doesn't take talent to be prepared, but it does take learning from some mistakes. So
Sure doesn't. It takes a lot of learning. Yeah, it's funny when you asked me about this subject. I spent like probably 3 or 4 days going like make a little note doc, and then like, oh, that's garbage. I'm gonna do the next thing. So I condensed it down, I think, for me, into like three different areas where I feel like the preparation is important, or just takeaways that I felt like are of value. So I think one thing is, when you're thinking about it in a team environment with preparation, if you skip this step, it's a huge mistake that I've made. But making the target clear to your team should always be a part of your preparation. If they don't know what constitutes a success, they don't have ownership. And if they don't know what their role is specifically, you're kind of destined for a little extra chaos that just isn't necessary.
right.
Again, found that a couple iterations in. Uh,
A couple pivots in.
yeah. The other one that this is probably meat and potatoes for me is so when I think about a project, I tend to think of it in 4 phases, and I separate out planning and preparation. So the plan would come first, and then directly the preparation comes after that. So the plan is, you brainstorm, you run a show, all of that stuff you're doing in the weeks leading up, getting vendors sourced, all that stuff. Your preparation is what you're doing the night before to make sure that you're not running around like a chicken with your head cut off. It's the load in, the load out, those things. And then you've got your execution and what we called at Lyft the post-mortem, which sounds like super dark, but is really just like process improvement. Like once you're done looking at everything and kind of creating a plan in reverse, like that's the starting point for your next plan, for your next event, project, whatever it may be. But the preparation, I think, if proper preparation allows you to be creative in the moment when things don't go according to plan.
Yeah.
And if you don't have that, you might still be able to, hit fire your way out of it. But if you do have that, it allows you to get creative with a little bit more like clarity, presence of mind. So yeah, preparation for me is much more the like, what am I doing to enable myself to be able to respond and manage the execution of this accurately. And if you don't do that, you might be fine, but it's just sort of a matter of time.
Right.
That means you more dodged a bullet than it was a success.
You become a time bomb.
Yeah.
I want to pull you back to you said post-mortem. Is that what you said?
Yeah.
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 I love that. It reminds me, well, John and I are old rockers. We used to play bands, and I remember we had I'm so old that I was playing in a rock band back during the O.J. Simpson trial.
Oh.
Or not too long after that, and we had something we would do after a show. We called it a sidebar.
Yes. Yes.
So we'd have a sidebar, and our sidebar was typically our band leader being like, "Okay, here's where you screwed up," and you go through all of the things that would make a better show next time. And I'm churching this up, but I'm sure you did the same, something similar. But it's while it's fresh in your head.
Yeah, band leaders or musicians, like not even successful ones, but just working bands, they're almost like, they are like small business owners in a sense. And that's the same thing as like sitting in a business meeting and going through like why things failed or succeeded. It's that same like mechanism of like self-improvement and just kind of understanding, okay, how do we do this? Maybe John, bring an extra guitar next time because you popped a string on stage. Fun stuff like that. You don't know what you don't know, right?
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
That's very true. So, yeah, I think to spring off of what you're saying is that that's what it looks like in real time. If you can role play that ahead of time, what would that look like? What does that look like now? And I know you're trying to build another business.
Yeah.
And you're doing that right now. So you're going through preparedness, and I think John just told me something really interesting before we hit record, is that He's going around seeing who's doing it good and who's doing it terrible. And I think that's really important. That affects the plan.
Yeah.
And you can't prepare unless you have that.
Yeah,
plan.
that plan is so important. That preparation is equally as important, but they're kind of symbiotic. I mean, I think if I really had to like, okay, I got to make like a Russian nesting doll of like my process or whatever. Like the preparation is kind of at the end part of the planning phase because you've got to size first. So if you don't size things correctly, your preparation is gonna be, I needed 4 batteries and I only brought 2. Well, I needed this and you've got to size it right first, and you're going to fail at that.
Yeah.
And I think that's why the postmortem or the sidebar
Right.
is so important. Is at the end of every event, project, whatever, you should take however long, an hour and a half, 2 hours, and just regurgitate and run everything you just did back and get everybody's feedback, like what could have been better for them. And if you're running kind of a solo gig like I am, like you just kind of need to sit with it for a little while and go, okay, I should have used this. Okay, cool. I need to make a note. And for me, a lot of that is actually writing those mistakes down because I can think about it, but if I don't write it down, it just kind of
Yeah.
and then I make the same mistake again and don't bring 4 batteries.
Yeah, and there's something to be said about pace too. There are a few guys that I know out there that work as hard as I've seen John work. Like work ethic, it will take you a long way. Like, I mean, your story about Lyft is a very good example.
Yeah.
Here, and right all the way to the top there by the time the pandemic hit. So there's a work ethic I think you just get a shot. I've always said, just give me a shot.
Yeah.
And my work ethic will prove everything else correct. You don't even have to trust me. Just give me a shot. So, where that damns me is in pace. So it's hard to be prepared when you're too busy moving at a certain pace. Or your work ethic tends to trump your ability to look back and reflect on what exactly went wrong there.
Yeah, I think understanding what point you're in will dictate like what action to take. So like that work ethic is going to kick off once you've developed a plan or preparation. Work ethic kind of fits into that preparation. But yeah, just being conscious of like where you're at and then applying the work ethic. If like most small business owners, I would imagine that's a common trait is they can outkick their coverage a lot. And that's incredible. It's the figuring out like, okay, I know I can catch up to that ball. How do I do this without throwing my leg out, or whatever. But the preparation aspect it's such a tricky little beast because it can get confused really, really quickly with other things or a lot of times, sometimes you can, because of your hard work ethic, neglect the planning and the prep because you can hustle and in the moment you can hit fire and get your way out.
Yeah, I think of this word picture of running across the water. Like skipping a stone, right?
Yeah.
Like it's going to make it 4 or 5 times.
Yeah.
Then it's going to sink.
Yeah,
So
sure.
work ethic is you running or the stone skipping. What will catch up when that stone sinks?
Yeah.
Take it from 2 guys who know how to hustle. Being prepared is a huge thing.
It's again, I think the biggest aspect that like I learned with Lyft about preparation is the actual unlock that it affords you when things go wrong. And I think there are a fair amount of times where I worked a music festival over in Memphis a few years ago, and it was the first time we'd ever done it. Had no clue, and we just had these spots laid out for us, and so we didn't necessarily size everything correctly. So the amount of pickups and drop-offs that were happening in one location was 10 times what we thought it was going to be. And fortunately, I brought a couple of the traffic wands, and me and a couple guys ended up out in the middle of street at 12 a.m. Yeah, directing, like separating cars from people because people were just flooding out at the end of this music festival. And so that kind of birthed this whole thought process of like, okay, we need some traffic management skills. I need to make sure that when I get people out here that they've got a certain personality and demeanor so they don't get like weirded out. you know.
Right, yeah.
We hip fired our way out of it very, like, to a certain extent, I wouldn't say sloppily, but it could have been cleaner. So then coming back to the next festival, man, we had traffic cones, we had wands, I had the right type of people put in the place. Yeah, and so it'll lead you down a lot of different rabbit holes that are ultimately very fruitful, and it's only out of those failures that you come back and go, all right, cool, not gonna happen to me again. So.
Oh man, yeah, I love that. That's I think we apply it in so many different ways. I mean, obviously I like to speak to the health, fitness, and that type of community when we use this vlog. But really, these are broad strokes. I mean, it doesn't matter what you're an entrepreneur in. If you're listening, you hear that there's a ton of foundational stuff here that will get you, a good bit of the way without necessarily being in the fitness industry. So if you're out there and you're a gym and you're thinking, well, how can I apply this to my gym? How can I apply this to my personal training? Well, let's just think about 2020 and how it gave us a pandemic. Were you ready? Did you have online? I know this is the answer to this question. Did you have an online presence where you could readily train clients so they didn't have to leave their house and effectively charge them for such thing? No, a lot of you didn't. I saw you all on Facebook giving away free workouts. No way, you weren't capturing that, and then you're giving away free workouts. You weren't capturing at least contact information and things like that. It was a difficult time. You were doing people a favor, but were you also thinking about the future and thinking about how to continue to build your brand? Yes, there's a place and a time for free stuff, but I think about that. It's like that was a hard lesson that we all had to learn real quick.
Yeah.
And what did you take from that? So.
Never has the world had to deal with the same problem all at the same time, which the nice thing about that is these days is you can pretty much up level your level of understanding very quickly. I just said up level your level, but anyways,
I'm not cutting it. It's gonna stay in
there. Well, all I'm saying is the information is out there, and everybody's had to deal with this. So whether it's the fitness industry or for me right now trying to develop aerial photography and learn how to pilot a drone, get certified with the FAA, all that stuff.
Right.
Those principles, if they're true, are going to translate through different industries and
we've just proved that. I mean, that's all we're doing over here. So.
Yeah.
Well, John, I appreciate you being here.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me.
And I'm gonna try to find some time to pull you back in here. We can do this again. This is fun. At least check up on your business and see where it's going.
Give me a week.
I'm taking this thing to the top. All right, guys. It's been Alternative Influence Coaching. I've been Terry, and if somewhere you're sleeping on the couch and YouTube is just running and running and running, it's time to go to bed. All right, guys. Like and subscribe. We need your help. Share if you found that helpful, and we will catch you later. See ya.
See ya.